Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ozark Fly Fishing. So today I want to talk about 5 tips for cold weather fly fishing for beginners. As the video states, this video is for beginners. All you experienced fly fishermen out there, you should already know this information, so if you want to watch it, you can, feel free to. But anyway, let's get into it. Alright, tip number 1, dress accordingly. Fall just started a couple days ago here in the northern hemisphere, and although I'm still having mosquitoes bite me right now, the temperatures will start dropping here pretty soon. It's just a couple days away until October. And so anyway, dress accordingly, wear plenty of clothes, especially if you're going to be wading. That temperature of just standing in that water just sucks the heat right out of you. Jackets, sock hat, just some type of warm hat on top of your head, and most importantly, gloves. Last winter I forgot my gloves, and by just a couple hours in that fishing trip I could barely tie a fly onto my line anymore. It was just shaky hands. So make sure you bring gloves. Yeah, just make sure you bring gloves. Alright, tip number 2, put layers on underneath your waders. If you're wearing neoprene waders, it's not that big of a deal. Neoprene material does provide a lot of insulation depending on how cold it is outside. But if you're like a lot of us and you wear the canvas thin waders, you can't cut it with just blue jeans. You gotta have on sweatpants, long johns, thermals, some type of warm layer underneath if you plan on being out in the water for hours on end, especially if you're in deeper water. So no need to go into that in great detail, just layers underneath your waders. Tip number 3, fishing alone. A lot of us go fishing by ourselves, and in the summertime that's no big deal. If you fall in the water, it might be cold, but the air's dry enough to where you're not going to get hypothermia versus in the wintertime. Now, I've seen people do it in the wintertime, but luckily that was always in trout parks, and there was plenty other people around to help get them out of the water and get into some warmth. So if you are going to go fishing by yourself in the wintertime, at least let someone know where you're going and when you plan on being back, so that way you don't end up just getting stranded out trying to build a campfire out in the middle of nowhere. Alright, tip number 4, dealing with frozen gear. So mainly the biggest hassle when it comes to dealing with frozen fly fishing gear in the wintertime is your rod guides will start icing over from just splash water and freezing weather. Simple solution to that is just dunking your rod underwater for a couple seconds, bringing it back out, and the ice will melt it off, but it'll keep freezing over the more you keep fishing. And also with your fly reel as well, your line may start freezing up a little bit. You have to dunk your reel in. Unless you got a space heater around, there's just no way getting around that. And also frozen gear, try to keep your gloves dry. If you're in real deep water, try not to dip your elbows into the water to where your jacket's getting wet. So just keep an eye on all your stuff, don't fall in the water, and you should be fine. Alright, tip number 5, you have to start using smaller flies. The big poppers and the long streamers that you use during the spring and summertime just won't cut it. Sure, you may get some bites, but for the most part, they're just not feeding like they normally are during the warm months. So you just got to revert to smaller flies. You can still use streamers, you can still use some dry flies, but you're gonna just have to downgrade some. And that may mean you have to go to size 18, size 20s, or even 22s. Last year I was fishing down at the tail race of Table Rock Lake there on Lake Taneycomo, and they were hardly biting on anything bigger than a size 20 midge. So anyway, I hope these 5 tips help you. One more time, just go over them. Dress accordingly for the weather, layers under your waders, fishing alone. Make sure someone at least knows where you're at if you're going to fish alone, how to deal with frozen gear, and using smaller flies in the colder days. So if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I will see you all on the next adventure. Oh yeah, also, just remember, even us seasoned guys have been fishing for years, we can still make all these mistakes, so be sure to cut us some slack if you see us messing up. Alright, see ya.